Welcome to the Biblical Perspectives for Leadership podcast, where timeless biblical truths meet modern leadership. We are thrilled to have you join us on this journey of exploring how biblical principles can guide us in leading with wisdom, integrity, and purpose. Whether you're leading in the church, your workplace, or your community, this podcast is designed to inspire, challenge, and equip you for the road ahead. Let's dive into today's conversation and discover how Scripture shapes the way we lead.
Welcome back to Biblical Perspectives for Leadership. Today, we're really diving deep into an incredible story. It's one that I think illuminates some really profound principles, both for leadership and just for navigating the twists and turns of everyday life. Our core focus, well, it's about how those threads from our past actions, maybe some hidden guilt, and what we might call divine timing, how all that can unexpectedly resurface, and how it reshapes our present, reveals so much about who we are. We want to explore what that means for you, whether you're leading a team, maybe a family, or simply trying to make sense of your own personal journey. The powerful story we're exploring today comes from, the ancient material of the Bible, specifically the account of Joseph's brothers.
That's right. For this particular deep dive, we'll be digging into Genesis chapter 42, starting around verse 26 and going through verse 37. It's a really compelling narrative, just packed with layers for understanding human nature and, like you said, the surprising orchestration of, providence.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is to truly unpack that collision, the guilt, the fear, the providence. What does this reveal about human nature, about that delicate dance of trust, and maybe about how a greater narrative might be unfolding even when we least expect it. Ultimately, we want to provide you with maybe a shortcut to understanding principles for strong leadership and for navigating those complex challenges that show up in your life every single day. Okay, let's unpack this. So let's set the scene here. This is the unexpected discovery, the road home. Joseph's brothers, remember, they've just had this incredibly tense but successful trip to Egypt. They needed grain. There was a famine. So they're finally making their way back to Canaan. They've got their sacks full of food, probably exhausted, maybe relieved, but maybe also a little unsettled after meeting that powerful Egyptian lord. And the initial discovery happens at a lodging place. Just picture this. One of the brothers opens his sack, not to count money, just, to get some feed for his donkey. What does he find? His silver, his money. Surprisingly, right there in the mouth of the sack.
Right. You can almost hear the gasp.
Yeah, the immediate confusion. Finding money is usually good news, right? But not for these guys.
And that's exactly where this story instantly takes a sharp turn. It gives us this incredible window into their souls, really. The text tells us their immediate reaction wasn't joy or even confusion. It was terror.
Terror, yeah.
They turned to each other and exclaimed, it's right there in Genesis chapter 42, verse 28. What is this that God has done to us? What's truly striking here is they don't think, the Egyptians made a mistake, or wow, lucky break. Nope. Their very first thought leaps straight to divine judgment. It instantly connects their present fear to what they did to Joseph all those years ago, selling him into slavery. And this just forces us to ask, doesn't it, for us in our own leadership roles, in our daily lives, how do we interpret unexpected challenges or even, seemingly strange windfalls?
Yeah.
And maybe more importantly, how much do those old burdens, the things we've maybe tried to bury or forget, how much do they actually influence that interpretation?
Yeah.
Sometimes without us even realizing it.
That's powerful.
Their reaction just screams that their guilt was simmering right beneath the surface, just waiting for a trigger.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, in our own lives, how often does something seemingly neutral or maybe even positive suddenly feel like a punishment just because of something we're holding on to from the past? It's like, finding a winning lottery ticket, but feeling like it's some kind of trap because of a bad decision you made years ago. It really shows how our inner state can just completely color how we see the outside world.
Exactly. Perception is shaped by that inner reality.
So, with this really unsettling discovery in the first sack, they press on, they continue their journey, and eventually they arrive back in Canaan. Imagine the scene. They return to their father, Jacob. This isn't just a casual, hey, Dad, we're home. It's got to be this detailed, tense report of everything that happened in Egypt. They have to explain why Simeon isn't with them. That's huge. So they recount their encounter with this stern Egyptian lord, who, of course, we know from the bigger story is Joseph, their brother. They describe how he spoke harshly, accused them of being spies. And to defend defend themselves, they had to lay out their whole family situation. We're 12 brothers, they said. One is no more.
Ugh, that phrase, no more.
Right. A chilling euphemism for the terrible thing they did to Joseph. And they explain the youngest is still back home with their father. And then the Lord's demand, prove you're honest. Leave Simeon here, go back, and bring your youngest brother, Benjamin.
And just when you think things can't get any more tense, we get to Genesis chapter 42, verse 35. And here comes the second, even more chilling discovery. It's not just one sack anymore. As they open all their sacks back home, unloading the grain, they find each man's bundle of silver returned. Every single one.
Oh, wow.
It's not just one guy's money now, it's everyone's. And what truly stands out is how this compounding discovery just ramps up the fear and dread, not just for the brothers, but now profoundly for Jacob too. It deepens their suspicion, their horror. It cements this feeling that they are truly under some kind of divine retribution. And, this is such a common, often paralyzing scenario in everyday life and definitely in leadership, when unexpected negative events just stack up one after another. It can rapidly deepen suspicion, it can severely erode trust, and just generate immense fear within a family or a team or an organization. Think about how hard it is to make rational decisions when you're just caught in that cascade of dread.
You're absolutely right. It paints such a vivid picture of just escalating anxiety. From one sack to all of them, the problem just multiplies exponentially. It's like a small hiccup in a project that suddenly turns into this full-blown crisis, and everyone's just holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's really hard to build confidence, isn't it, in a team when fear is the main thing everyone's feeling.
Impossible almost.
Yeah.
Fear is corrosive.
Which brings us right to Jacob's anguish and Reuben's, desperate offer. You can only start to imagine Jacob's reaction to this whole series of escalating misfortunes. In Genesis chapter 42, verse 36, his bitter lament just pours out. He says, "You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. And now you would take Benjamin." You can just feel his profound, overwhelming grief, the sense that everything is working against him. And this leads to such deep distrust and sorrow. It's not just about the immediate situation, is it? It feels like it fractures his trust in his own sons even further.
Oh, absolutely. Jacob's despair here. If we look at it through the lens of a leader, he's the patriarch of this whole family, this clan. It's incredibly profound. He's grappling with loss after loss, feeling utterly powerless against circumstances he just can't control. And connecting this to the bigger picture, it really shows how even strong, experienced leaders, people responsible for the well-being and direction of many, can be completely overwhelmed by grief and fear. And that emotional state, it can severely impact their judgment and, crucially, their ability to trust, even those closest to them. It really reveals the human side of leadership, where those personal burdens weigh so heavily on public and family responsibilities, sometimes almost to the point of paralysis.
And right in this moment of intense despair, we see this attempt at leadership, maybe, though, like you said, a desperate one.
Yeah.
Genesis chapter 42, verse 37. Reuben, the eldest son, steps forward. He tries to reassure his father. And he makes this incredible offer, the lives of his own two sons as collateral. He says, "Slay my two sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands and I will bring him back to you." What does this tell us about the pressure, the loyalty in a crisis like this?
It's such a fascinating moment as Reuben's offer. Wow. It truly highlights the profound weight of family responsibility, of loyalty, especially coming from the eldest son. He often carries that burden of leadership, of family continuity. But it also forces us to ask a really critical question about promises made under duress. Is this a genuine, thought-out guarantee? Or is it just the desperate plea of someone trying to manage an impossible situation, trying to alleviate the immediate tension? And this reflects so much about leadership decisions made in crisis moments. When you're faced with overwhelming pressure, leaders might make promises that are, frankly, difficult, maybe impossible to fulfill, just to try and get through that moment.
Yeah, just to stop the bleeding, so to speak.
Exactly. And it really begs the question, what does it truly take for trust to be rebuilt once it's been shattered? Shattered by past actions, compounded by ongoing grief. Reuben's offer, while it sounds selfless, is really this desperate gamble to restore a trust that's just been deeply fractured within his own family.
That's such a critical insight. It's not just about what is said, but the context, the desperation behind it, and what it reveals about those underlying, often hidden dynamics of trust. Makes me think about the promises we make in our own moments of crisis. Okay, so let's try and tie all these threads together now. Let's look at some key themes and insights for both leadership and just, everyday life. We've seen several powerful themes emerge from this story snippet. First, there's this strong sense of divine providence and guilt. The brothers' immediate jump to seeing everything, the silver, Joseph's demands, as direct divine punishment for what they did to Joseph years ago.
Right, that immediate connection.
Then we have family grief and mistrust. Jacob's ongoing, really profound grief over Joseph, which just visibly clouds his trust, even in his own sons. It affects his judgment, leads to this kind of paralysis.
Deeply affects it.
And finally, there's the foreshadowing. This whole encounter, this whole section really sets the stage, doesn't it, for the eventual return to Egypt with Benjamin. That's going to be a future test of their integrity, and ultimately it leads to the shocking revelation of Joseph's identity.
And connecting these themes to sort of practical applications for leadership in daily life is so important, because this ancient story speaks so directly to our modern experiences, our modern challenges. Let's start with the unspoken truth about your past. It's not just history class, right? It's like this invisible co-pilot sitting next to you in your present decisions. It steers you in ways you might not even realize.
That's a great image.
Yeah, like that silver unexpectedly reappearing in the sacks. Your past actions, especially the ones you've tried to bury or forget, they often resurface in surprising ways. And this isn't just about, personal integrity alone. It applies directly to transparency, to accountability within organizations, within leadership structures. You simply can't truly move forward, whether you're an individual or a team, if unaddressed stuff from the past is constantly pulling you back or quietly eating away at trust. It's a powerful reminder, I think, that true leadership often begins with facing your own history head on.
That's a powerful image, yeah. An invisible co-pilot. It makes you realize that sometimes the biggest roadblocks aren't external circumstances, but they're internal. They're rooted in that unaddressed guilt or those unresolved issues. It's like trying to navigate a ship with a broken compass because you refuse to admit it's damaged.
Precisely. And that flows right into the next point. The profound weight of trust. This story just powerfully illustrates how deep mistrust, whether it's rooted in past betrayals, like the brothers selling Joseph, or maybe present anxieties, like Jacob's fear of losing Benjamin, it can literally paralyze decision-making.
Yeah.
It can completely break down communication within a family or a team or any group. And rebuilding trust, well, it's not a quick fix. It's not just saying sorry.
No.
It's a difficult, multifaceted process. It often requires a whole series of consistent, trustworthy actions, open communication, and crucially, a willingness to actually confront past wrongs directly. As a leader, understanding that trust landscape, where it's strong, where it's weak, that's paramount.
So true. It makes me think about those times when a team just hits a wall and you slowly realize it's not really the project itself that's the problem, but it's the unspoken anxieties or maybe past grievances that are just grinding everything to a halt.
Absolutely. And then there's this fascinating idea, the paradox of providence. Sometimes the most challenging detours, or even what feel like outright disasters, they might actually be the most direct routes that a, let's say, greater narrative, a divine plan, is orchestrating towards your biggest breakthrough. What appears to be misfortune or even punishment, like the returned money or the seemingly harsh demand for Benjamin, is, if you zoom out, maybe part of a larger unfolding divine plan. It's preparing the ground for reconciliation, for ultimate redemption. And that perspective, it can be incredibly encouraging. It can foster resilience in leaders and in all of us facing personal challenges. It suggests that sometimes in the most confusing or painful moments are precisely what's needed to move towards a greater good that you just can't see yet.
That's a really beautiful way to frame it. It shifts the whole perspective, doesn't it? From why is this happening to me to maybe what might this be preparing me for? It's subtle, but it's a powerful change in mindset. It can make all the difference when you're leading through uncertainty.
It really can. And finally, this narrative offers some crucial insights into leadership through adversity. The story shows us this whole range of reactions to crisis, right? The brothers' fear, Jacob's deep despair, Reuben's desperate promises. It invites us to reflect on how we, as leaders in our own spheres, whether that's at home, in our community, in the workplace, how do we manage our own emotions? And just as importantly, how do we manage the emotions of the people we lead? especially when facing the unknown, and especially when those past issues are bubbling up to the surface. It's about so much more than just strategy or planning. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about resilience. And it's about understanding those deep-seated human responses to immense pressure.
That's a truly profound takeaway. It really challenges us to look beyond just the immediate crisis and consider those deeper currents that are at play, both within ourselves and within our teams or families. So as we bring this deep dive toward a close, what does this all mean for us today as we lead our families, our teams, or maybe just navigate our own daily lives? So just to wrap up this deep dive, let's quickly reiterate our mission. We wanted to understand how the past inevitably shows up in our present and how sometimes what looks like a setback is actually divine timing orchestrating a greater good. And all of this drawn from that compelling story in Genesis chapter 42, verses 26 through to 37.
So here's a final thought for you, perhaps. If you feel like you're carrying something from your past, maybe a past mistake, a hidden fear, some unresolved issue, consider this. Sometimes, when the past shows up unexpectedly, it's not just a problem. Maybe it's actually an invitation from a greater narrative, preparing you for something remarkable that you might not yet see. How might revisiting those buried things, those difficult things, actually open a path to a future you couldn't have imagined on your own?
Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive today. We really hope this exploration has given you some valuable insights for your own journey, whether in leadership or just in life.
Thank you for joining us on the Biblical Perspectives for Leadership podcast. I hope today's insights have encouraged and equipped you to lead with faith, wisdom, and purpose. Remember, the greatest leader of all time taught us that true leadership is about serving others. If you enjoyed this episode and podcast, be sure to subscribe, share it with others, and leave a review. It helps us reach more people with these transformative truths. Until next time, keep leading with grace and walking in purpose.